In nature, metamorphosis is the biological process of differentiation, transformation, and growth that many species go through. 4 years ago, Conservation Halton went through its own metamorphosis as we looked at understanding the needs of our community and understanding the resources and the skills that we needed within the organization to help meet those needs. We looked at our guiding principles. We came up with integrity, with sustainability, with collaboration, innovation, and they have really been embedded in our culture. They are a lens through which we look at everything. They are a lens through which we debate within the organization what decisions to make, what opportunities to pursue. We were a fantastic organization, but we really needed to focus on how we can make ourselves truly great and sustainable moving forward. So some of the outcomes for metamorphosis for me personally have been the achievements of our staff, have been the investments in our staff. It's transformed the organization into one that is a really good listener now, and that's very important. You can't claim to serve the community unless you really take a pause and listen to that community, engage with that community, establish new relationships. And that's one of the underlying successes of metamorphosis, because it speaks to how the culture within Conservation Halton shifted.
One of our key conservation targets for the Metamorphosis strategic plan was to increase the amount of wetland, floodplain, and creek restoration projects by 5 to 10%. In the 4 years, we restored 184 hectares of land and 11 kilometers of watercourse. One of our keystone restoration projects in the last 4 years was the Drumquin Park Creek and Wetland Restoration Project. We started planning in 2016 and implemented it in 2018. It was 200 meters of creek restoration, and restoration of 1.5 hectares of floodplain, creating new wetlands in Milton, and removal of a weir, which is a barrier to fish passage.
Because this was a reach where we had silver shiner, which is a threatened species both provincially and federally, it was really important to improve that habitat and help this species out. When we did the rescue, that was in 2018, and mud puppies had not actually been seen in that part of 16 Mile Creek since 1982. So over 36 years, we hadn't had a record of mud puppies. They're indicating that the water quality is good, the habitat quality is good, and we have a really good, healthy stream there.
Looking back at the last 4 years, I'm most proud of our work partnering with our municipalities, our industry, neighbors, bringing everyone together to be part of a project, to volunteer in a project, or give feedback on a project has been so nourishing to the overall result, and make sure that everyone's gonna adopt and appreciate the work that we're doing.
The thing that I'm most proud of is being able to work with our teams to accomplish a great project that will improve the health of 16 Mile Creek.
Landowner Outreach is a really important part of what Conservation Halton does. The vast majority of the watershed is owned by private landowners, much like it is in most of southwestern Ontario. When we're reaching out to landowners, we'll do it in 2 ways. We're doing proactive outreach and we're doing reactive outreach. An example of us addressing proactively some sort of an impairment would be our Brookies and Bronte Forever program, helping brook trout in the Bronte Creek watershed. They're sort of like the canary in the coal mine, if I could draw a comparison. If we can help brook trout, then most likely we're going to be able to help all the other little critters down the food chain. And this initiative has allowed us to fund a lot of really important restoration projects and engage a lot of new landowners and partners. I would say probably the greatest highlight for us has been the Corcliffe Park Restoration Project. Over the course of 2015 to 2018, we did some heavy construction, modifying the creek, realigning it, removing ponds, narrowing the channel, planting lots of trees, which is always exciting. But I think what's more exciting about Corcliffe Park has been the partnership component of that project and what separates it from a lot of the other work that we do as an agency.
A really great example of a multi-stakeholder partnership that came about during Metamorphosis is the Halton Climate Collective, which includes Conservation Halton, Halton Environmental Network, the region, the school boards, University of Waterloo, and Sheridan College. The Halton Climate Collective supported 2 major youth conferences called Generation Green that had some conferences and workshops for youth to learn about climate change, and then they went away and implemented their own projects to track their GHG emissions. And we also launched essentially a community book club project called HCC Reads, And as part of any new initiative, a really important aspect of that is getting a website established, a social media presence, and launching a newsletter, which now has over 1,000 subscribers. I'm really proud of our ability to implement physical projects on the ground that improve watershed health and to add to our watershed knowledge every year.
One of the most important projects that we undertook during Metamorphosis was the rejuvenation of the Longhouse Village at Crawford Lake. It's such an important part of the history of the land to recognize that Indigenous communities came first and that we're walking on Indigenous traditional territory. So the rejuvenation of these buildings, which were getting to the end of their natural life, was so important to make sure that future generations could also come and learn. As part of the rejuvenation project, we've undertaken some really incredible partnerships with the Indigenous community in Milton and in the Greater Toronto area, and that's resulted in some incredible projects here at the park, including a Three Sisters garden planted by Indigenous kids according to Indigenous practice. It's resulted in an incredible archaeological discovery zone for kids to play in. It's resulted in improved programming. It's just brought the park to life. There's a lot of road yet to walk here at Conservation Halton in terms of truth and reconciliation, but we're so honored to be working with our community partners to make that journey.
So Metamorphosis was key to our department. It allowed us to really emphasize our relationship building, our customer experience, and then continuous improvement. We released 99% of our reviews of technical permits within 6 weeks. 96% of our major and minor permits released in both 30 and 90 days respectively. The planning and regulations team really stepped up when it came to the pandemic and the COVID restrictions. We were essentially a paper-based department and within weeks transformed into completely digital. During Metamorphosis, the one thing that I'm most proud of is how the planning and regulations team focused on customer service and building relationships.
The Metamorphosis plan really allowed the Flood Forecasting and Operations Group to move the program into a new era, utilizing technology. As such, in the monitoring side, we've established a real-time data acquisition platform on the cloud. We originally had about 11 stations within the jurisdiction. We now have over 50 that we're consuming real time. The watershed monitoring data that we collect helps inform us as far as flood forecasting and warning, and it also helps other groups within Conservation Halton. And that really allows anyone in an emergency operations center to see real time on the ground what's happening, to inform them as well how to take action. You know, we collaborate with a lot of groups within Conservation Halton, our information technology, our IT group, our GIS group, our ecology group, the park staff. I find that when we present them with a challenge, they always seem to find a way to solve it.
Metamorphosis was great for the parks and operations team. We saw our visitation increase from about 1 million people in 2017 up to 1.25 million at the end of last year. So that's about a 25% increase. So we're pretty happy about that. Along with that, we were able to implement a lot of new programs and services. We expanded our wellness programs in the parks, so that kept our community engaged and kept them wanting to come back to our parks. We knew at the start of the plan that our digital footprint in the parks world was behind. So we had set a goal of about 30,000 transactions. This is where we wanted to get to online. Last year we saw about 350,000 transactions. Now part of that was because of COVID and we implemented a new reservation system, but we really focused hard on our digital transformation in our parks and made it much easier for our customers to get out to the parks and enjoy them. I'm really proud of our survey responses that we've got back from the public. That really is kind of the benchmark. That shows us that we are doing something good. And a lot of the surveys and the visitor services team talking to our users, the feedback that we get from our guests has been fantastic. And I'm really proud of the team that they're able to continue to offer the programs and services that the public wants and that we're able to meet the demand and really provide an enjoyable experience in our parks.
At Conservation Halton, we had watershed management plans that were developed many years ago. And so we're rejuvenating that program right now so that we can incorporate some of the latest data from our watershed, including climate data, water levels, water quality, biodiversity, and so on. And so through this process, we'll be able to better plan for activities within our watersheds. We're actually working on a partnership project for the Grindstone Creek watershed. And that one looks at natural asset management. So we partner with our municipalities and with the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative, or the MNAI program. And so with that specific project in the Grindstone Creek, we're identifying all of our natural assets like our streams, creeks, our wetlands, our groundwater sources, and we're trying to value them, and in that way we're trying to see what kind of services they provide as an environmental feature. We have a really strong groundwater monitoring program, and so our team are very specialized in that. Conservation Halton was actually part of a very large project that helped develop a climate change vulnerability assessment tool for drinking water source quality, and helps us get where we need to go in climate change resiliency.
Our ambition is for a future that is green, resilient, and connected. And today, I feel Conservation Halton has the momentum.
Momentum. Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum.